Hey there, welcome back to the Free Black Women's Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I've been trying to shoot this video for hours. Yay! I think this is gonna be the one. Anywho, thank you for liking this video. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I am on a mission to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer, which feels like a really lofty goal in this moment because I only have 330 subscribers and it is August 10th. Actually, it's midnight, so we're right on the cusp of August 11th. But hey, I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful, and even if I don't get there, I don't mind. I just like setting goals for myself. Arbitrary ones that don't really mean a lot, just to see what happens. But anywho, we'll see if I get there, and you can help by just clicking that button that says subscribe. Thank you. Also, thank you to my patrons, the people who really support me in this work in a really special and sacred and important way. Thank you so much for supporting my work. Thank you so much for nurturing my Black feminist nerdy explorations of books, film, and TV. I'm really, really grateful for y'all. It's really exciting. It's really humbling. It's really sweet that there are people out there who believe in this work and who enjoy it and are interested in watching this project grow. That's really, really something. Like, it just makes me feel really like, wow, you believe in me. You believe in this. You know, it's I could ramble about that for far too long, but I will not. I just want to make sure that you know that I appreciate you, and I also appreciate those of you who come back to these videos every week and not only like the videos, but also leave me these thoughtful, brilliant comments about this series. I mean, the source material is excellent. So why not go in, right? Why not go in on the characters, on the story, on the writing, on the costuming, on the music? Why not? It's just all fucking brilliant. So I'm enjoying it, and this episode, like all the other episodes, was incredible. I love this episode, episode 9. It was called Social Media is a Great Way to Connect, right? And when I saw that title, I was kind of like, is it though? I don't know about that. Social media is can be very toxic and very damaging and very antagonizing, especially for Black women. I find there's a lot of misogynoir in social media. There's a lot of sexism. There is a lot of subtle and not so subtle jabs taken at Black women, Black mothers, Black single mothers, mothers who are cash poor. Just so I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't know about social media. Sometimes I find it to be really just psychically damaging to the psyche, if that makes sense. But then it can also be a great way to connect, as it says. So this is another one of those things where there's not a yes or no, and there's this shade of gray. There's been shades of gray all throughout this series, so this is just another one with this title. Let's get into it. We start out and we find Bella. Opening scene, Bella is in her bed. She's bald, and as soon as I see the bald head, I'm just like automatically intrigued, because for me, I find that the bald head is a visual cue, right? Whenever we see Arabella without that ratty pink wig, that purple wig, that straight black wig, whenever we see her bald, I feel like we're about to see the true, real, authentic, raw her. Like, we're not about to see her like act up, play a caricature, play a role, try to not be fully herself. Just there's just something I find that's different from Arabella bald and Arabella with wig and weave on, and that's something I've noticed from episode 1. Tell me if you agree. But I was automatically like, okay, where something's about to go down in this episode, and that's the clue. And she's watching, she has her phone in her hand, but her mind is like on the assault, and she's picturing that same horrible image of the man that's over her doing something to her. It's not clear what he's doing, but something horrible is happening. She said that she was raped by mouth. She said that a couple episodes back, one time, but it hasn't been mentioned again since. But either way, she's not seeing one man this time. She's seeing different faces. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, she's seeing a bunch of different faces. The thing they all have in common is that they're all white and they're all male. So now there's a conflation that's happening when it comes to like white maleness. And it's not really clear whether it's more than one person that assaulted her, or if she's just conflating all these different faces as her abuser, as her violator. And this is something that definitely happens if you have a traumatic moment with one specific person. You might end up conflating and imagining every person who possesses similar characteristics to the person that caused you trauma. You might see that your assaulter in all of those other people, if that makes sense. It's something that happens, unfortunately. And maybe that's what's happening here, or maybe she's just having a breakdown. She's looking really out of it, and we hear Ben in the background say, "Hey, are you all right?" And he shoots over him. She's like, "Yeah, I'm just tired." And he's like, "Oh, okay, get some rest." And then he says, "Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween." And I'm thinking, okay, not only are we getting the clue that it's Halloween night, so of course there's going to be shenanigans, but also we're understanding the passage of time that has taken place, right? Because in episode 1, it was January, and now it's October, right? 3 months before episode 1 was when her and Terry were in Italy together when she first met Biagio, okay? So we're getting to see all of these things that she's been experiencing. It's been less than a year. Time is going by, but it's been less than a year, right? It was 9 months when she found out about the case being dropped. And so time is still going by, right? And she's still dealing with her trauma. She's still dealing with the pain of her assault. Whew, and it's a lot. And the way she's dealing with this pain is she's using social media, right? She's using social media as a way to deal with all this pain from that experience. Not just of having been raped once, but being raped twice. Second time through manipulation. And then not really getting any type of justice because the case is dropped. So she's watching herself rant on social media, and everything she's saying is making perfect sense, right? She's ranting and she's going off, but she's saying things that are true. She's talking about, there's a reason why we don't have a White History Month. There's a reason why we don't have a Straight Pride Month. These are not marginalized communities. Marginalized communities need to center themselves and celebrate themselves because they are rarely seen, rarely centered, rarely celebrated. So somebody out there is making noise. This is part of the reason why I've been having so much trouble shooting this video, because it's been noisy for like the past 6 hours. But I'll just get closer to the camera, so maybe that'll help you hear me better, and I'm gonna keep going. So, so it's Halloween. Either way, she's watching herself, right? And, oh my goodness. Wow. After Ben says Happy Halloween, the camera shows us a shot of Bella on the bed, and floating above her is this figure dressed in black with long straight black hair floating over the bed, right? So when I saw that figure, I thought to myself, did Bella decorate her room for Halloween? That's weird, right? I couldn't really tell what it was, but she reveals who she is later. So she's, watching herself rant, and she learns what doxing is, because somebody says we should dox all rapists. She looks that up, and to dox basically means when people publicly share your address, where you work, they try to out you and shame you, so on and so forth. Maybe one day I'll have a soundproof room to record these videos. Because I have some movies that I'm going to be talking about in future videos, and I really... Y'all tell me how annoying is the noise. Maybe I'm being extra. Maybe it's not a big deal. I don't see how it can be though. These people, I'm on the top floor of my building. That's how loud these people are. I'm gonna keep going. All right. So, and she's weeping while she's on her phone. She's weeping. And it's kind of like, move the phone closer. All right, I'm gonna pause, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, I am back. It seems like it's quieted down out there, so let me finish talking about this episode real quick. I'm just gonna do a quick Rambly recap. Then I'm gonna share my 4 hurts, my 4 heals, and my favorite thing about this episode. All right, so as I said, there's this figure looming above the bed, and I said, did Arabella decorate her bedroom for Halloween? Like, what is that figure hanging above the bed? Then, credits roll, I may destroy you. The you disappears. Terry and Arabella are in a doctor's office with this white male British doctor, and he is giving Arabella her CAT scan and letting her know that the diagnosis for her brain is healthy. Everything's fine with her mind. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So she went to make sure that she's okay. Like, whose idea was that for her to go to the doctor's office and get a CAT scan? But anywho, she goes live, lets the folks know, hey, for all of you who think I'm crazy because I argue with rapists and pedophiles online, I'm actually not crazy, and now I have proof. And my girl Terry, she brought me here. She's here with me to the doctor to give me that love and support. She's so good. Terry jumps in. Follow me at The Real Terry Pratchard. Self-care to all. Peace and love. Okay, back in the room. The doctor says, okay, so your brain is fine, but because you're Afro-Caribbean, we need to make sure that your high blood pressure is in order. And Arabella gets offended. She goes off and she lets him know, I'm not Afro-Caribbean, I'm African. There's a connection and a distinction between those two things. And as a white doctor who deals with all different types of clients, that's something that you need to be aware of, and you need to make sure that your colleagues are aware of it, and your whole like institution, this whole medical institution is racist and it's trash, and y'all really need to get yourselves together. I'm out. She leaves. So the doctor's face is cracked, and even though I thought she really went hard, I feel like she made some very good points. So, you know, I'm still kind of like, you're doing a lot, but you're making good points. So I'm gonna let you rock. Although it seems like something is going on with you, girl. Like consciously, psychically, there's something happening. Like I said, is she about to have a nervous breakdown? Especially because of the way she was crying in that first scene, where it was almost like she didn't even realize she was crying, or she didn't care that she was crying. So she leaves, and Terry, ride or die Terry, is talking to the doctor. So, doctor, what can we do about my girl's high blood pressure? What can we do about the kidneys? Like, how can we make sure that she's healthy? And I'm loving Terry right now, because this is what you need whenever you go to see a medical professional, regardless of what race or gender you are, but most especially if you are a Black woman. It is always important to have someone else there with you to help you to navigate the conversation and the exchange and the information, because that can be traumatic. It can be confusing, it can be frustrating, it can be emotional. It's just like having a doula for when you're giving birth. Have somebody that kind of like plays that role of the go-between to help like balance the energy, hold the space. And in this moment, Terry is this person, and she's doing a great job. She's asking all the right questions, but she also shows herself to be a little bit of an enabler, because when the doctor's like, just because she's not smoking doesn't mean that she's still engaging in not engaging in unhealthy practices, because she's still vaping, and that's not good for her either. You know, and the doctor tries to talk to Terry about vaping, and she shuts him down and is like, she's dealing with a lot of stress from that phone. She got people who are like reaching out to her all day, every day about their rapes and their sexual assaults. And she was raped not once, but twice in less than a year. So, doc, don't try to take her vape away. Like, she needs the vape. What she needs to do is put that phone down. That's causing her much more stress than that vape ever will. Do you agree? And the doctor's like, yeah. So, you know, it's one of those things where both of them kind of make the doctor feel like he just has to agree with everything they say, because they have such strong personalities. And so they leave. And then in the next scene, we see Kwame and Bella, and it's a really beautiful shot. There's a lot of duality happening here. There's a lot of symbolism happening throughout this whole episode. The way people are kind of like placed up against each other. The whole thing about like that angel-devil binary. So we have Kwame and we have Arabella standing like this. One is facing one way, one is facing the other way, and they're both looking at their phones. Arabella's looking at tweets, as always. She's all caught up in her men, bad, rape, assault, violence, the patriarchy, all that stuff. And Kwame is looking at Grindr, about to have a Grindr hookup. One of his Grindr friends sends him a video of him fucking someone else. It's like porn, basically. He sent to his phone, and Bella hears them moaning. She looks over, like, what are you looking at? He says, oh, this might be my next, you know, situation. And he just sent this to me so I could, like, check it out to see what he's working with. Bella's like, I like that. I'm like, y'all are wildin'. Y'all are wildin'. So Terry comes out of the costume shop. Mind you, shopping for a Halloween costume on Halloween day is never the move. She's like, oh guys, they only had they only had like angel and devil stuff, and they only had one halo left. But before we decide who gets the halo, can I just like state my case? I wondered what she was gonna say. Like, why should she get the halo? What would be her argument? Like, how would she debate that? Okay. But Kwame's like, listen, you put this whole thing together. So if you want to wear the halo, you should wear the halo. All right, girl? That's all you, boo. And Terry's like, you sure? And Bella's like, yeah. Like, neither one of them cared about that damn halo. They weren't studying that. Terry wants to be the angel. She wants to be the good girl, okay? She wants to be the good friend. She wants to be the good person. And her wanting to wear that halo just kind of, you know, it just kind of emphasizes that point. And I didn't think it was heavy-handed at all. I loved it. I love that symbolism. So, you know, so she's all excited and she runs off and she's like, sipping paint is first come, first serve. So let's get it popping. We gotta go. So they walk down the steps through this alley. And as they're walking through this alley, this little cutie named Rumi runs out the store and yells out to Bella, I love your content. You know, so she stops. Oh, a fan. Adore, an adoring fan. You know, he's like, I love your content. I'm a victim of rape, and you've given me so much like power and so much affirmation with your words and sharing your story. I was afraid to speak out, especially as a man, but you just really helped me. Mind you, Terry was walking way ahead of them with the bag, so she's kind of like up the street. But Kwame and Bella stopped when Rumi came out. When Rumi started talking about being raped by a man, Kwame walked off to go stand by Terry. So it kind of looked like he wanted to cry. He was like wiping his face. He said, this echo chamber is freezing, which I thought was like such a deep, beautiful sentence. Like, this echo chamber, like people are saying to you what you're saying. It's like, that's what you need. Like, your ego needs to be like fed by your own words. That's what you need right now. And I feel like this whole episode is kind of like an example of like hurt people, like that phrase, hurt people, because of all the things that go on. So Bella doesn't even notice that Kwame is upset. She's so caught up in this adoring fan Rumi and the moment they're having, where she like gives them a hug and everything, and she's like, people need to deal with the pain that they have buried underneath. I'm like, you need to take your own advice, okay? You're not dealing with the pain you have buried underneath. You're medicating yourself with social media. You're medicating yourself with coming off like a hero instead of dealing with the fact that you are in deep, deep pain, girl. Like, you are hurting because of all these things that you've experienced. And you don't try to hide it and deny it by feeding the masses, who are your bunnies, as you like to call them. So anyway, so she finally catches up with them. She's like, sorry guys. And they're just like, yeah, whatever, girl. So next thing we know, we're at the POC paint party, more like the black people's paint party, because black and POC are two different things, all right? POC is people of color and black is black, all right? And from the looks of it, it looks like this is a party for black folks. And I love this party. Can someone throw a party just like this? A sip and paint on Halloween with all black folks? That sounds lit, okay? Do people still say lit? That sounds poppin'. Like, I used to be a goth, okay? I mean, I guess by the looks of things, I might still be a goth, but but I used to be very, very goth. And this, I would have been all over this back in the day. Like, my younger self, a paint party on Halloween night? That sounds fun. I'm not a big wine drinker, but that sounds fun. And it kind of looked like they were in like this like medieval kind of like dark industrial type of building. It was like really dark, dimly lit, and there was no vaping allowed. She kept trying to vape regardless, even though the little sweet vampire Dracula looking host kept saying no vaping. She still kept trying to make that vape work, right? So that's, there's something still bubbling up inside of her. It's bubbling up, trying to get that thing to work. It's not really working. So she's like, fuck it. So she decides she's gonna go on her phone, and Terry's like, we said no phones, put the phone down. And she's like, oh. She tries to get the vapor work again. She's like, how come this thing isn't working? Terry tries to help her, and then she goes to shoot a video. And Terry's like, we said no phones. And she's like, oh, I'm not gonna go online. I'm just gonna shoot a video and I'll just post it later. So she shoots this video, and once again, everything she's saying makes perfect sense. I'm all about it. She talks about how Black people of color need their own separate spaces, away from the eyes of the oppressor. It's like the language she uses is so loaded, and and so like combative. But the points she's making are completely valid. Like, Black people, people of color, we do need separate spaces where we can be together, where we don't have to worry about racism. We might confront anti-Blackness within an all-Black space, but that's something different from actual racism from a non-Black person. So I understood her point, and like I said, I would have loved to go to that type of party. Like, are you kidding? Like a all-Black Halloween party where we just like paint and drink wine? I mean, I would be drinking whiskey, but I'm about it. I love costumes. I love dressing up, obviously. So, she makes that video. Terry gets on it. So Terry's like, I don't know if she's like kind of like riding her coattails with this social media train, because she's always talking about follow me at the real Terry Pratchard. So she's gaining followers, and she's gaining some notoriety from being Arabella's friend, and also being the one who booked the POC, the Black / POC paint and sip party. She's the one who got the tickets for the three of them. It's a self-care night. So Terry's an excellent curator. I would love to go to anything that she put together, because she makes good choices when it comes to that. So, so they're talking, and Nullifer comes up. Kwame is telling them about his date with Nullifer and how horrible it was. How she talked about how she didn't want to use the N-word, but she dropped an F-bomb. And I was here for Arabella when she, like, you're okay with her being her racist, but you're not okay with being like, because I was a little bit confused about that too, because it seemed like he wanted her to use the N-word because she said ninja. He was like making fun of her. Like, I didn't understand that part, because I don't know. I understood why he was angry about her saying the F word. Like, that's fucked up too. But I feel like both those words are awful. Anywho, so he's telling them, oh, she said the F word. And they're like, what? Terry's like, oh, white girls, I hate when they disappoint me, I feel like I've heard Black women say that in real life. So that part just kind of made me chuckle. But she's like, well, how did you tell her? Why did you tell her? And he's like, because she said F, boom. And they were like, oh man. And she was like, well, did you pull your dick out or whatever? And he basically lets them know that it wasn't until after he'd already had sex with her and they'd done the deed that she said the F word, and he told her he was gay, and she cussed him out and he left. And you see, as he's talking, Bella gets angry. Ooh, child. She gets angry. She tries to get that vape to work. The vape is not working. She's like, you fucked her, right? You fucked her, and then you tell her that you're gay. Like, you know, that's deceitful. That's wrong. Like, how could you do that? And he says, well, I didn't feel good about it. And she's like, well, you better not have felt good about it, because if you felt good about it, that would make you a really horrible fucking person. So she leaves, and Terry runs after her, and she's like, hey, Bella, come on. He said he didn't feel good about it. And she's like, you know, that's not the fucking point. He went into a woman's apartment under false pretenses, and he took advantage of her. Like, he had sex with her. He put her in a vulnerable position. And Terry's like, well, he's vulnerable. And she's like, that's not the fucking point. Like, you know, what he did was fucked up. And she's just in full anger mode. She's in anger mode. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is why Terry hasn't told you about that night with Simon, is because of this temper that you have. You have a temper, okay, Bella? The way you tried to kick Biagio's door down and cursed him out, and now the way you're talking to your two best friends right now shows that you're a little scary when you're mad. So this might be the reason, right? Because she's like, oh, are you fucking insane? Use your brain. Until you get raped, you can't say anything about it. This is what she says to Terry, her best friend from junior high. Yo, let me tell you something. I understand hurt people, but if you're the type of person who is cursing out your friends who have been there for you for over a decade, they've been riding for you, you need to check yourself, because you're acting up, boo. You're acting up. Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. Go sit down, go take a nap, go draw a picture, go lay down under a tree. If ever you ever feel yourself getting to that point where you're looking at someone that you know loves you and you are talking to them as if they are a piece of trash, the way Bella was talking to Terry and Kwame in that moment, if you ever find yourself even tempted, just swallow that shit and go and sit down somewhere. Don't do that. I did not like that. That was abusive, okay? And like I said, hurt people. It was abusive. So Terry's like, and she did something in this moment which I thought was really brave, is she tried to call Bella out on her hypocrisy. And she said, well, Kwame made a mistake. And Bella's like, that wasn't a fucking mistake. There's no such thing as that type of mistake. He basically used her. And, you know, I saw a lot of criticism of Kwame's behavior online, and I understand it, and I definitely, you know, I don't agree with it, but I also don't think that he deserved the way Bella spoke to him, because it was obvious that he felt really, really bad, you know, whether he felt bad because he was like shamed for being gay, or whether he felt bad because he knew that he shouldn't have had sex with her. Either way, it was obvious he felt bad. He even tried to tell Bella that, you know, she kind of forced him. You know, it was like awkward and weird. The way, just explain to her the way it went down, because like I said, he wasn't into it, and she kept going. So anyway, those shades of gray. But either way, Terry was like, what about when you locked him in the room with Jamal at my birthday party? What about that? Was that a mistake? Or What were you trying to do when you did that? Because he felt vulnerable in that moment. He didn't want to be alone with him. It was very scary for him. And you doing that, what about it? What about that? You're talking about people doing things to people that are mean and manipulative. And Bella's like, Kwame. And Kwame is like, yeah. And she's like, oh, he's here. So if he has something to say to me, he can say it himself. You don't have to speak for him, right? Which is true. But Kwame is very meek. He's very meek. He's very submissive. He's very, very submissive. And he's very meek. I don't know what other words to use. And I'm not saying that these things are bad, but he definitely needs to learn how to stand up for himself. Because he needed to in this moment, and he didn't, right? Bella goes over to him, and she's like, Kwame, I've been a good friend to you, right? And he doesn't say anything. And it turns out that she now knows he's been raped. Now we know that she knows that he's been raped. Because she's like, you told me about what that guy did to you. And she's speaking in half sentences, but she's not really saying anything. And he's not saying anything at all. He's just kind of looking at her. And she's like, listen, if you paint yourself out to be a victim and you're really not a victim, that shows a lack of integrity and a lack of respect for real victims. It's very uncomfortable. It's very awkward. Like, I need you to look in the mirror and really figure out who it is you are and what it is you're trying to like be, because I can't be fucking with somebody that's on some bullshit. Paraphrase. She leaves. And this specific scene is when it became clear to me what was going on in this episode. Her shadow self was taking over. That figure that we saw floating in front of the bed in the very first scene was her shadow self, right? And it was growing within her. It was getting stronger. It was taking over. It was taking over. Now, I wrote down some stuff about the shadow self because I didn't want to forget it. But the shadow self is an idea that was created by Carl Jung. He was a Swiss psychiatrist, born in like 1865 or 1875, who founded the concept known as analytical psychology, right? And what the shadow self is these are like the inferior characteristics of the psyche. These are the parts of your consciousness, the parts of your personality, the parts that make up who you are that you necessarily keep like hidden and underneath, the parts of you that you might be ashamed of, the parts of you that are ruled by, guided by unhealthy behaviors, ego, lack of awareness, defensiveness. Carl Jung said, whatever is rejected from the self appears later in the world as part of an event, right? So basically, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, although I have gone to psychologists and psychiatrists for a lot of my life. But basically, what I think it is I think when somebody experiences a specific type of trauma, the shadow self, which exists in all of us, is awakened to a higher level and kind of like heated to and fed by that trauma. And I think it causes it to get stronger and grow stronger, and it causes one to act out, right? So we talk about destructive behaviors like drug addiction, like putting yourself at harm by flying off to Italy to see some random dude, fighting with your friends, being mean to the people who love you, bullying, all these different things. And the reason why I'm saying this is because in this scene, when she's leaving Kwame and Terry and she's walking, her shadow is in front of her, right? Her shadow with the horns is in front of her, and it's almost as if she's being guided by her shadow, right? That self that's walking, she's walking behind it. There's a lot of walking in this episode too. And when she's walking behind it, I was like, oh, that symbolism was popping. You know, and the only reason I know about the shadow self is because I've done shadow work. And was in doing shadow work for a long time. So I pay attention to that, I guess, for that reason. But it was such a deep moment because I said, okay, now I know what's going on here. And now I understand she's spiraling and she's letting the underbelly of who she is take over. And it's like, we can't deny the shadow self. We can't hide the shadow self. But we also can't let the shadow self be the complete embodiment of who we are, because there's no benefit from that. What we can benefit from is integrating that shadow self into who we are. So we can't reject it, we can't subdue it, because then it can get more ooh, I think I'm saying too much, but either way. So she walks over to this bar. There's a whole bunch of people in front of the bar, and I'm getting a very like dark side of the moon vibe when it comes to the lighting and all the people. And she's out there on her own, you know, and it's almost as if it's a Greek chorus going on behind her, because we don't really hear distinct conversations, but we just hear people talking and we see people milling about, and that shadow self within her just like needs to be fed. It needs attention. That vape is not working. Can I borrow your vape? She tries to plug it in. The vape doesn't start. Oh, it's still not working. She needs to be fed. She needs to be fed. She gets a tag. That picture she took with Rumi pops up. She's got like 43 new followers. Woohoo, like new followers, likes, comments. You're a hero. You're so brave. She hands her phone to some random woman. Hey, can you take my picture? She stands, opens up her wings, beautiful blue light glowing, like causing this like kind of really intense, you know, kind of like a dark halo around her whole body, like this aura. She's kind of like glowing, and she's bathing in her shadow now. Like she's literally just letting it take over. And dude comes up to her and he's like, oh, you know, I like your outfit. And she's like, oh, that's really cute that you think your opinion matters to me. Face cracked. So meanwhile, you know, Michaela, Arabella's shadow is like good at cracking faces. Doctor's face was cracked. Terry and Kwame's face got cracked. And now random dude who's like, we have the same hair. What kind of line is that? You know, so she's just on a rampage now. She's on a roll. Like she's all in it. Like, let's go. Right? So she gets on live, she gets on Twitter, she gets on Snapchat, she gets on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. We don't really know what these social media things are, but we know that like the platforms are changing, and her tenor, her tone, the things she's saying are getting more and more volatile, more and more intense, as the character likes to say. And she's walking down these streets past these businesses, and it gets to the point where she's walking past the same places again and again and again. So she's just like walking in circles while she's ranting on her phone. We get that Spike Lee, that infamous Spike Lee long shot where it just looks like she's like floating into the camera, and she's like, oh, new hashtag, dox the cox, right? And she's wilding out. She's doing way too much. Like she starts out really in a kind of like a basic place, like basic rant. So she starts at 10. Hey guys, did you know that phones are only designed for men's hands? Did you know that crash test dummies, you know, they don't use like pregnant women? Like, she's just random facts. I guess she's just on some. I'm here to teach. I'm here to speak truth. She's going on and on. Ooh, child, saying way too much. And then it gets to the point where she's like cursing at people. People are commenting like, are you okay? People are first they're like, oh, you look so beautiful. And then it becomes, are you okay? And then it goes to like, had me thinking about that title. Social media is a great way to connect. And I was like, yeah, this is when it becomes not a great way, because you are caught up, you're doing way too much, and you need to go sit down, right? So she's going on and on and on and on and on, and then it gets to the point where the room is just spinning and she's not even in a room, she's outside. Next scene, boom. She's with Carrie, my favorite secondary character, Carrie the therapist. And Carrie the therapist gathers her together. She's complaining to Carrie about Kwame and how she's like this horrible person and he's shit and I can't have shit around me. And I'm like, girl, you're doing way too much judging your friend like this. Like, you know, and Carrie's like, oh, you seem really upset. Carrie calms her down. Thankfully, she knew to call Carrie. Thankfully, she knew that she wasn't doing well. Thank God for that emergency phone line. I need a therapist like Carrie in my life. So, you know, so she's like, yeah, things are going okay. I've been writing. Carrie's like, how's things with the case? She says they closed the case. Do you think it's weird that I took my evidence bags? And Carrie says, well, everything and nothing is normal, you know, everything and nothing is, so don't even judge yourself. There's no right way or wrong way to do this. You're moving through an experience, and the best thing to do is just move through it without judging yourself. And I love Carrie. I love her talk. I love her tone. I love the way she explains things. She, Arabella lets her know that she just shoved this stuff under the bed. Because she's like, how did you feel it? Open up the things. And she's like, I didn't open up the thing. It's just, I just shoved it under my bed where everything else goes that I don't want to deal with. And Carrie draws a line and she's like, this is you on top. And these are all the things underneath the bed that need to come up to the surface, open up and air out. The shadow self is within the subconscious. And if we don't deal with the shadow self and try to integrate the shadow self with who we are, you know, accept our flaws, accept our shame, accept our guilt, accept our laziness, accept our hurt, our loneliness, all these experiences, all these aspects of the human condition that make us not perfect, right? Those are all connected to the shadow self. And until we deal with those things, they're just going to be like a dark cloud that just kind of like stays with us. And one of the beautiful things about integrating the shadow self into your life, especially if you're an artist or a creative person, is that you can use all of what it brings to the surface to make work. To create art, to write music, to paint pictures, right? So that's part of the beauty of that integration. Not only does it make you more balanced and more whole as a human being, but it also gives you fodder for creation. So, anywho, so they draw the star. Bella draws the star, connecting the top to the bottom, and then puts a question mark. Can you do this? Yes, you can. How about you delete social media? Do you need to be on it? And Bella's like, well, I don't need to be on it, but it's important that I speak. You know, I have a lot of followers and, you know, I need to communicate. I have people who are counting on me, people who send me DMs, who need to hear from me and who need to be encouraged, and I need to do it. And Carrie's like, well, okay. How about just take a break? everybody takes a break. People go on vacations, people go on holidays, they close school for the summer. Even a cantor takes a sabbatical, right? So Bella's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So she goes home and she deletes. And I was so proud of her. She deleted all of her apps, and then she went underneath the bed and she started pulling all the things out from underneath the bed. And Ben comes in, hey, what you doing? Oh, well, I was gonna pull out the evidence bags, but I figured since I'm down here, I'll pull everything out. And I knew there was a lot of shit under that bed, because in that last episode, when she pushed those bags in, it was such a hard push that I said, oh, it's packed under there. What you got under there? So she took a whole bunch of things out, and while she's like looking through the things, she kind of just stops. Ben is there in the background. There's a theory out there that Ben is not real, that he's a fiction of her imagination. What do you think about that? I don't know, but I don't mind a good plot twist. I love a good plot twist. So if it is, bring it on. But either way, Ben's like, you got a lot of stuff under there. And then she stops and she lifts up this bag, and Ben's like, what's that? And Arabella says, she goes to sit down, she opens up the bag, and she's like, this was a long time ago. Like, I almost forgot. This was a long time ago. Like, I almost forgot. This was a long time ago. I almost forgot. And Ben's like, yeah. And she opens it up the bag, and it's a white fabric with a little bit of blood and a sonogram. So it's like, oh, Bella was pregnant at one point. Whose baby is that? Was that Biagio's baby? I wonder. So it couldn't have been that long ago, according to the timeline, but then you never know. Hopefully they'll go into that more. But it sounds like she got an abortion, but the thing about that is that if she got an abortion, why would she have a sonogram? Because they usually don't give you a picture of the baby when you choose to abort. So I'm a little bit confused about that, because Ben says, do you regret that decision? And she says no. So if she made a decision, that sounds like abortion, but having that photo threw me off. And then we see, not only is the shadow self leading and controlling the situation, but it is actually a full manifestation right in front of her, sitting on the chair right across from the bed. And she throws those same words that she said to Kwame, she throws them right back in her face. You need to look in the mirror and figure out if you're really truly a victim. Are you? Because if it turns out that you're not, that's mad uncomfortable, mad awkward for everyone here. Bell rings. It's Terry and Kwame. Terry comes up. Bella stands up. She says, I'm sorry. It's a weak I'm sorry, but it's a sincere I'm sorry. Terry accepts it easily. Whereas Kwame, he's in the hall. He wasn't sure if you were wanted to see him. The way they're catering and coddling Bella right now, I don't know how I feel about it. But in either way, Bella goes out there and talks to Kwame, and she says, I was very intense today, and I'm sorry. And she tries to be really apologetic, and Kwame just kind of like minimizes what she did and just kind of shuts her down, like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's fine. They hug. He says, I love you. She says, I love you. And it was beautiful, but I feel like it was an opportunity for Kwame to just let her be sorry, like she was apologizing. Let her finish what she's saying and just like talk about what she did wrong. Don't try to make it seem like what she did was okay, because it wasn't. Okay? Don't minimize that behavior. But it was fine. He leaves to go meet his grinder boo. And then she said something weird, because she's like, what about Terry? And he's like, oh, she won't notice. I'm like, why won't Terry notice that you left to go be with some dude on Grindr? But anywho, so she goes back in the room. Ben says goodnight and leaves. Terry says, you want to do this now? Bella says yes. She takes the 2 evidence bags, opens them up, spreads everything out on the bed. Terry says, what do you need? Netflix, painting, Dodo. Dodo is fried plantain, by the way. This video is way too long. She says, I want to go for a walk. So they go for a walk, but they're not really walking together for the whole walk. Bella is way in front. Terry's running after her. Not sure if she's still being led by her shadow self in this moment, but either way, they're not walking together. Terry's literally running after her, Bella, and it's a long walk all the way back to Ego Death Bar where the assault took place. Terry's like, why are we going here? What's going on? They sit at a table outside. Bella's looking inside, possibly looking for the person who assaulted her, who I believe is named David, that white guy from episode 1. Doesn't see him, takes a long pull of the vape. It finally works. She blows out smoke out of her nose and her mouth. She has her fangs on. She says, yes. Like, finally got that vape to work. Credits roll. The end. Let me do my 4 hurts, my 4 heals, and my favorite, because this video, I said a lot, but that stuff about the shadow self is really interesting. 4 hurts. Bella lashing out at Kwame. Bella lashing out at Terry. Bella's breakdown in the middle of the store complex street area. And Bella loving on Rumi while Kwame is standing right next to her crying. 4 heals. Carrie the therapist, of course. The forgiveness that took place between the friends. The removing things from under the bed. That is a clearing, that is a cleansing. If you have cluttered corners, cluttered desk, cluttered closet, clutter under your bed, pulling that stuff out, sorting it out, going through it, throwing away what you don't need, giving away what you feel people would want, holding on to what serves you is a great healing process. And the 4th heal is that even though the social media was kind of causing her psychic damage, I thought it was nice that her work, what she was doing online, was encouraging other people to speak out and other victims to not feel shame. So my favorite thing about the episode is the symbolism. The exploration of the shadow self, the symbolism of the devil and the angel, the fact that it all took place on Halloween, All Hallows Eve, which is the day before All Saints Day. So Hallows Eve is when the ghosts and the ghouls come out to cause tricks and cause chaos and cause drama. And November 1st is when all the saints arise, and it's like, ethereal and sacred and holy. So it was possibly, some people might say heavy-handed, but I loved it. I loved how literal it all was. So if you've made it to the end of this video, please drop a black heart in the comments for me and let me know your thoughts on this episode. What hurt you? What healed you? What was your favorite part? And what did you think about? And have you ever gotten in touch with your shadow self? Have you ever done shadow work? Let me know. And please come back for episode 10, which I'm about to watch right now.